The Wednesday, May 15th meeting of the Gardner City Council Finance Committee will come to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Council Denalowitz.
Present.
Council Matt.
Present.
President Kaczynski.
Present. Is anyone here recording this morning's meeting? We will begin with the FY 2025 budget hearings. For the public watching, the purpose of the budget hearings is to give each city department the opportunity to present their budget to the City Council Standing Committee that is associated with their department, answer any questions, entertain any comments from the committee. The departments at today's meeting are associated with the Finance Committee. Mayor Nicholson presented the City Council with his city budget recommendations on Wednesday, May 1st. His proposed budget also became available to the public that day on the city's website. Thank you to the department heads and the mayor for being here at today's meeting. The FY 2025 budget hearing of the Gardner City Council Finance Committee is now open. We will go through each department as they are listed on our agenda. And we did get a different format this year of all of the budget items from the mayor's office. So given that there was much more information from each different department, we do have some explanation of some of the budget that we had in the past, which as a side comment, I found very helpful because I went through and had questions and I went through and got them answered after, so that was good. We will begin with the department of the City Council, which is the City Clerk. Come on over. And we'll also do clerk and elections altogether.
Sure.
Start with City Council though.
City Council, pretty much everything is level funded.
Any questions, comments from the committee? Anything else, Madam Clerk, on that?
No.
Mr. Mayor, anything?
Thank you, Madam President. You'll note the increase in councilors' salaries is reflective of the vote that was taken at the end of the following term to add the step scale in for this term, for this year, and fiscal 25 and fiscal 24, because those votes had to take place prior to the beginning of the term. So that is what that increase is reflective of.
Thank you. Anything further?
I just had a question on professional development and travel. The actual as of this year seems a lot less than budgeted. Mayor, did you think that we needed to budget as much for FY 25 just in case there was a need?
It was just in case there was a need. The Mass Municipal Association is offering new trainings this coming year, so I didn't know if any of the councilors would like to participate in those. As the city is a member of the Massachusetts Municipal Association, every councilor is also a member of the Massachusetts Councilors Association as a result. So if anyone ever wants to go to attend those meetings, we do reimburse for gas at the IRS rate. If any councilors also wanted to attend the annual meeting of the Mass Municipal Association, that's also something that would be covered in that account. So we budget in case anyone wants to. Traditionally, no one has, except for a handful of trainings here and there, or a handful of reimbursements for gas to different events and different locations of meetings that have taken place. So I just did not want to limit the other branch of the city's government from being able to do anything like that in the budget proposal.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments?
That's historically how it's been. It really hasn't had much expended out of that account in the past several years.
Thank you. Moving on to City Clerk budget.
Pretty much, the only thing difference is probably like the staffing from 2 assistants to 1 assistant. I like to have 3 people in there, so 1 assistant and 2 admins to help. I need the bodies more. People in there to help with the all the election stuff and vital stuff and early voting. That's about it.
Okay, my only questions were going to be about the equipment and communications, but those are addressed within the supplemental information that you had provided. Are there any questions, comments from the councilors?
I just had a question. Upon the retirements, you chose to take 2 positions to 1, correct?
Right.
And now you're...
I'd rather have 1 assistant and 2 admins in there.
Okay.
I need more bodies in there.
It's demoting a position to a clerical staff instead of an assistant department head.
Further questions, comments?
With the additional staffing that we have now, obviously, I see the overtime in your budget was 0 and the mayor's budget was 4,000. We're gonna see that flatten because we don't have the turnover, correct? For the overtime budget?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, comments? Okay, you wanna cover elections, sort of covered elections in there, anything further with elections as well?
No fewer elections next fiscal year than last year. We had a lot last year. This one we only have 2. So we should be good.
Thank you. Anything from the councilors? Thank you, Madam Clerk. I am going to take just one out of order, because Director Beauregard has another commitment, so you can come on up, Director Beauregard. And we will do community development and planning. Director Beauregard, anything that you want to go over with the budget that wasn't included, or anything you want to highlight?
Not really, other than the, the proposed increases in salary, everything is pretty much level funded. There are small decreases, but those items are fairly small budget items anyways.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the councilors?
No, none in the budget, no?
Mr. Mayor?
No, across the board, I should have said this earlier too, all non-union staff members have a 3% cost of living adjustment. We've traditionally done 2, but this is a way to try to get us up a little higher and more to a marketable rate with all of our positions. Once the salary survey is fully completed, we'll hopefully be able to work towards a better goal and funding plan on how to get to where we need to be for these positions. However, before all of that work is finalized, just looking to make as much of an effort as we could. We are still in negotiations with some of the unions, as is shown in the budget packet that I received you, and that's also included on the city's website. Most have since settled and either entered into their full union contract with the city, or we've finished negotiations and have entered into the memorandum of understanding, and the contract is being negotiated currently. In the Community Development and Planning Office, there's only one union member, and that's the executive coordinator, and that's in the AFSCME union. Everyone else is non-union in the department. Chris Fusel is controlled by the union contract. She did just get a promotion from administrative assistant to executive coordinator because of the work that she does for the planning board, the community development department, and the other sub-departments that she works for. Everyone else is the 3% cost of living adjustment.
Thank you. And the salary study, do you have like a timeline on that, or?
We did get delayed a little bit just because the school department took a little longer for us to get some information there. I'm hoping, I'm gonna say a government September. That means I'm hoping it could be sooner, but I'm gonna say September just because it's how things tend to work here.
Thank you. Anything further? Thank you, Director Burke.
Thank you.
We're going to back to the order on our agenda. So we're going to do mayor and mayor's classified. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. In the executive department's budget, you'll see the 3% cost of living adjustment for the executive aide and the executive assistant's salary wages. The temp salary and wages is flat. That's if we have an intern in the mayor's office. That's what's paid for out of that. That funds 2 interns technically. The mayor's pay is based off of the vote of the city council that was taken last year. Other than that, things are pretty much flatlined except for the mayor's portrait. We had been putting money aside to try to see if we could either scan or come up with ways to preserve the older mayoral portraits that are downstairs, because those are the only copies of those pictures that we have. Similar to what former Clerk Agnelli was looking to do in this room here with the old council pictures, where before he left he had ultraviolet protection glass installed on all the pictures to make sure they don't fade. The company that did that is no longer operating, and we can't seem to find a company that can scan a picture as big of those yet for a reasonable price. So we are still working on those. We can encumber that money right now, so just as a way to help cut some pennies to save for the next fiscal year, I cut that line item out of my budget this year. In the mayor's unclassified section, termination leave is traditionally lower than what we anticipate for that. And sometimes we've had to, transfer money into that as well. But basically it is if we have someone who retires, resigns, any of those type of things, if they have accrued benefit time, it's paid for out of that line item. So we transfer from the termination leave and the mayor's unclassified line item into that department's account to pay out that person there. But that way, when we ask for the budget, we ask if there's any anticipated retirements in the upcoming year. So those numbers are based off of what we anticipate could be people who are retiring this year to pay out their benefit time. If you were hired before 1994, you have certain sick time buyback opportunities that don't exist for someone who was hired after 1994, and then any other accrued benefit time is paid out of that line item if someone leaves.
Thank you. I have two questions. Just because these kind of jumped out, just when you're looking at it, but the building demolition,
Yes.
so that was 50,000, and then it wasn't anything, and then the water from 19 to 14, if you just wanna.
So the building demolition account is a new account that I put in place when I was elected mayor. That was when we were dealing with the Cosentino old furnishing factory on West Street. And we wanted to come up with a plan that if we had another situation like that, how would we be able to immediately address the safety hazard and concern that was there without having to go through the longer process that we had. So we put $50,000 in the budget to try to make it so that we had some type of seed money that we could respond to emergency situations. That is basically cut to help level out the budget and get us back into the green. So if something like that were to come up again, would probably be a free cash expenditure or something that we come before the council for, just like we did with that finishing factory. And as for water, that was based on trends that we were seeing in expenses.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the councilors?
With the energy expenses, I see that dropping. My assumption is the loss of the schools and having to be electrical in those,
Yeah.
for those at home. And with the telephone, I believe there was a bigger expenditure, which we may have in our packet later on. I see that dropping. Is were phones upgraded? Is that correct?
The phones were upgraded. Bob, we can probably talk about that later when he gets up here, because he oversaw that project, and it's a very, I enjoy the system. I think it's a lot better than what we had before. There's a lot more functions that our employees and department heads can utilize with these new phone systems. But when Bob gets up, we can talk about them more. But yeah, we have a new phone contract from who we used to have it with.
Just so you can see, knew the answer, but for people at home, the actual's dropping significantly from 2024 to 25.
Yeah.
Or budgeted for 25 or significantly, so thank you.
Yeah.
And can you just explain the increase in the capital improvement plan research?
Yeah, so the capital improvement plan has traditionally been budgeted at 50,000. You'll see the actuals have been about 34 for the past couple of years. A lot of the capital projects that we've been undertaking have been greater than the 50,000, so we've reserved this for the smaller ones that come up here and there. I think that the as of is going to be closer to the $50,000 this year, just because of some repairs and maintenance that we've had to make. But that's really if we need to hire a consultant for certain projects, if there's a smaller capital project that, we can eat that way, those have been some of the things that have been funded out of that.
Further questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Next we have assessor. Christine Kumar is here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Level funded, pretty much. Not a lot going on.
Meeting too, so a lot of the stuff was the same. Anything else you wanted to add though regarding your budget?
No, it's just the salaries. We had a couple very small increases from our vendors. Beyond that, we're level funded.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the councilors?
I forgot to say this with my department. My department is exempt from the union because of the confidential information clause. In the assessor's department, the department head is non-union and the clerical staff is a member of the ASME union. So it's split 50-50.
Further questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Quick and easy.
Contributory retirement board. I don't see Cheryl here this morning. But John, you typically take that one too. Auditor Richard?
So basically, the salaries are the same as far as, well, the board and admin is the same, but the administrator, that's just contract rate, and that's negotiated by the board, the
Retirement board.
retirement board. And then the contribution retirement assessment that's already established. We basically review the schedule, and then we see what, we look at, analyze what the best way, or what can the city afford. And again, on that, hopefully, we're gonna be fully funded in 2031.
And that's based off of the reports that our actuaries do and submit to the city every year, and the plan has to be adopted by the retirement board at their vote, and it's a publicly posted meeting where that happens too. So that's where that all comes from. And then the contract for the retirement board administrator, that's done under state law, that they vote to set that contract with that employee.
Thank you. Anything further? Questions, comments from councilors? Thank you. And we will go to auditor, since we have the auditor right here.
All right.
Go ahead.
On that one, it's basically, obviously, we got the 3% in salaries, and then as far as operating expenses, the only thing that really went up is professional services. That's our auditing firm, outside auditing firm. We did get 3 quotes. They were within probably $100 each. Actually, Markham, the one we use right now, was the lowest. Also, that includes the actuarial report. We use Stony on that one, and their rate was, it's comparable. I got 3 quotes, and they were the lowest. We did decrease our office supplies because mostly my department is paperless. Mostly, I mean, we don't print anything.
Which is a very recent development. Thank you, John.
Yep. Yeah. What else? That's it.
Questions, comments from the council?
Both of these staff members are non-union.
Thank you.
Yep.
My only question was just with the outside auditing firm, do you switch firms? Like, do we keep the firm almost for a time?
When I got here, we were using actually Melanson and Heath. We've been using them. They actually got bought out by Markham. So I put it out to bid. We have a good relationship with Melanson and Heath, now Markham. If, like I said, if another firm would come in cheaper, I would definitely go with them. We really have a good relationship, and their system is basically everything's I uploaded to, they have a website and everything that's fully secured. I mean, they do come on at our location for 3 or 4 days, but I'm very happy with them. But again, if another firm came in lower, I would definitely switch. But at least I do quote it out.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we will go back up to order here. We will do purchasing and civil enforcement. Director Cormier. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, anything you'd like to add or say about your budget, or?
Well, you have the narrative that I submitted. I'll just pick purchasing first. Most of the line items on the lower half have either stayed level or they were reduced, and that's perfectly fine. Again, the 2 things that I requested that were not given were this idea, I think it was last year I said it too, the idea of communications. Right now, when we do a bid, if it's say Department of Public Works, we have to do an advertisement in the Gardner News, that bill comes into us, we have to send it to the DPW, they have to pay it. In lieu of that, we'd like to streamline that, make it so the purchasing department handles all that. So the bill comes in, we pay it, nobody has to do it. Obviously, that doesn't go with grants. If there's a grant, the grant will pay for it, and that's a different story. The other thing, as I noted 2 weeks ago when I was here, I'm the opposite of the city clerk's office. My department doesn't need more bodies, but we need the bodies to work the way they need to. Currently, the financial admin is limited in what she can do, and I can say she because it's been she since I've been here. That position is limited, though. It really needs to be a position that allows for the director to not be here every minute of the day and to do the every conversion of a PO, every contract, every bid. To be honest with you, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. It's at the end of the fiscal year. Again, working on 50 renewals, and last week I said 43. There was 12 more that I have to do for on-call tradesperson. There's 4 live bids. There's 3 bids that I have to write this week. Third one just came in this morning. So, and I think my predecessors will say the same thing, that it just gets busy at the end of the fiscal year. This is an essential financial department. This is something that conversions need to happen. We did 52 purchase orders yesterday. That's 52 purchases that don't get done in a timely manner because the only person that can convert it is me. So anyway, I just stress that there. I'm sure everybody that works for the city feels that there's times where they work too much or work more than they should. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it would be nice to be able to enjoy a few days off in a row and not have to carry over 200 hours of vacation time every year. So I'm not crying. I love the job. I love the team that I work with, as I said last time, but I just think whether it's me or it's somebody that follows me, that department has to be structured differently for that reason. So that's, and actually that leads into civil enforcement too, because there's a lot of time that's taken away because of the civil enforcement piece of it. Having an assistant director in that position would allow for that time to be managed more efficiently. But other than that, that was requested, and obviously I understand for budget reasons that, but I hope it's a plan that continues to get talked about. And then as civil enforcement, it's level funded. And we reduce the professional services, which is the fee that we pay for parking ticket processing. We are going through the parking ticket processing RFQ right now. It's due on Thursday. It's due tomorrow. So we'll know. So, yeah.
You have the actuals here in front of you that was traditionally budgeted at $5,000, so that's what the decrease is, the $4,500 that you see in front of you for the budget for next year. The department head is non-union. The clerical staff in there is a member of the union. We are looking to see if we can work towards an assistant director position that would have to be negotiated with the union to remove that position from the union, just like we did with the assistant auditor a couple years ago. But it is a plan that we are working on, seeing if we can get towards, because like Josh said, he should be able to take a vacation without worrying about checking in on his laptop, not just his email, but his actual work every day that he's on vacation. Other than that, one of the things that I do want to note with this too is that with the recent Supreme Court decision and Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court decisions to modify or come up with new rulings on the tax title process right now, if we take a property by tax title, it's called the home equity theft law. It's to crack down on municipalities taking a home when they're owed like $1,000 or $2,000 and selling the home for $500,000 and pocketing the profit. The new regulations that have been put out as a result of these cases is that if we take a property that's in arrears in taxes and we sell the property for more than what we took the property for, we can only keep up to what the property had in back taxes, and then we owe a check to the previous owner for the extra amount that we sold the property for. So if we took a property for $5,000, sold it for $500, we'd owe the former property owner $495,000. So we're still working through those processes right now. So the sales that we did a couple years ago, those have all been declared fine because those were either tax takings for well over what the value of the property was or city-owned properties that we sold. However, if we move forward with any other tax takings or land sales or stuff like that, we have to navigate those regulations. So that'll be probably a little slower in the upcoming fiscal year. But that's something that was done through the purchasing department as well too, at a rate that, again, his predecessors have not seen that many sales of properties, that many appeals on civil enforcement inside. So the work in this department has increased and the need is there. It's just finding a way to get to that plan.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the councilors?
My only comment is I really hope that that will happen. There's so much great need in that department for assistant director. I hope the union will work with you, and it's for $9,000 to $10,000. It would be money more than well spent. Thank you.
So then I keep looking both ways when I walk. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Information technology, Director O'Keefe. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is there any comments you have about your budget?
Budget's almost identical to last year. It's less than 0.5% difference.
Anything from the councilors? My only question was on the information technology line, and I don't know if I didn't, if I missed it from the supplemental stuff, but it, like, it has 81,850, and then it goes back down to the 37 that was in the budget, which is closer to the other years, so I'm just confused by that.
All right. When the budget was first prepared by my department, this council and the mayor had not yet approved the free cash transfer for the cybersecurity products that we did a few months ago. So because of that, we were able to reduce my request.
Okay, thank you.
There are some recurring costs that'll be there associated with that. But the council approved funding for a 3-year contract. So the full cost of the 3 years was recently approved. You'll notice later on in the agenda, there's a request for a special projects, special stabilization account. Something that we're looking to do is put aside a little bit every year so that when we have those recurring costs or we have a bigger capital cost come up, we'll be able to take the money out of that. So it wouldn't be something that hits the budget at a big point every year. Rather than budgeting in the operating budget and continuing to basically have an escrow or encumbered budget where we budget what we know we're not going to spend just to save it up and build up a bank account so that when the hits, we have that money in place, set it aside in an actual different account for itself so it's not throwing off the actual operations side of the budget, and painting a clearer picture of what's actually being spent year to year.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the councilors?
Got mine, Counselor, but another one too about the software also dropping above 30,000 software, the service license renewals. Is there something we're not getting or something we're not getting?
It's not that something is been removed. It's all related to that free cash transfer.
It's still free cash.
One of the big chunks of the new cybersecurity product is it also includes backing up all our servers. Therefore, the line item, which was software, we used to have the annual backup software, we were able to pull back out.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, comments from the councilors?
I think there was an earlier question about telephones.
Yes.
Yep,
Do you want to bring that back up now?
sure.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
The new phone system.
Just the details of the new phone system.
Oh, okay. The current phone system we have is a voice over IP system. It's voice over IP both internal and external. So we're no longer using Verizon lines to send calls out or receive calls in. The system is designed so that if another pandemic should ever happen, and the mayor and the council wanted staff to be able to work from a different location, whether it be home or somewhere else, all of these phones are portable. You take this phone home, plug it into your home network, or you can even attach it to the Wi-Fi network in your home, so you wouldn't even need cables. And your phone extension works at that location the same as it did at City Hall. So that was one of the major reasons of new features being put into it.
They're basically a little computer in the inside that you can transport anywhere, and if I dial a certain extension at my desk, it would ring to that person's house just as if they were right here in City Hall. And there's also call forwarding to cell phones if a department head wanted to do that as well, and several other features.
Yep, so some locations, for example, the senior center now is on the same system as City Hall and the fire department. So we all have 4-digit calling between the 3 buildings. Eventually that'll be likely citywide.
Thank you.
One of the things I just want to point out too, if I may, Madam President, so the fiber grant that we got a couple years ago, Bob has been overseeing that. Just to give him, give an update on some other projects he's working on, since they're all funded from this budget or grants that he was able to get as a result of what's in the budget right now. So that fiber project should be working soon to run the fiber down to the Waterford Community Center.
Began yesterday.
Okay, so see, soon. Waterford, it was.
Soon.
Yep, it's gonna connect the city network, which right now is the senior center, police, fire, and City Hall. So to that, Waterford will be connecting, also the high school, which means the entire school complex. One of the items that was requested with the new elementary school was to give police access to the cameras. So we're finally gonna be completing that piece.
Because now they'll be connected to each other through that. And then the other thing that, did you get over to Monument Park yesterday?
No.
Well, one of the things we're working on right now is installing Starlink Wi-Fi connectors on the bandstand at Monument Park that would provide free public Wi-Fi to everyone who's attending events over at Monument Park as well. Looking at seeing if we can expand that to certain other areas of the city like the pool and some other locations too. So Bob's been the one who's been spearheading that project and making really great progress on that.
As soon as I see a couple days without rain.
Yeah.
Maybe next week.
Anything further from the counselors?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move to human resources. Good morning, Director Norris. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
But you just know that she's new.
Day 3.
I will be covering the budget.
So this year, this is a learning moment. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. So the department head, this office is exempt from the union as well due to the confidential nature of the information that's processed through the HR department. So you'll see a cost of living adjustment for the department head and the 2 clerical staff members that are there. Budgeted in this budget is a clerical and a half because one of the clerical staff positions is half budgeted through the golf department. So we have to keep those separate since the golf department is an enterprise fund and that's funded mainly through memberships and other revenue that the golf course takes in itself. The other items that are here are pretty much level funded. The medical exams went down significantly. There are certain things that are changing. The school department has reduced the type of physicals that need to be done over there and has no longer doing drug tests for applicants who are over there, but kept in the contract that if there's any suspicion or something like that, the randoms can be done at certain moments, but not a pre-employment aspect to those type of things. That was done by the school committee. Yes,
Sorry, excuse me. Is that common with other school departments?
Most school districts have gone away with that based on votes of the school committee. Most municipalities have not. Most municipalities no longer test for marijuana since that has now been legalized. We still do here, and that's something that we're looking at seeing if we still test for on our city non-school side of things. Which is pretty common, again, in most municipalities, but most school districts have gone away from that, mainly because of the shortage of applicants who are applying. We have not, I will say too, we haven't had any issues since the school committee decided to make that decision back at the beginning of this current school year.
Thank you.
The volunteer incentive program for seniors, the VIPS program, that is the senior tax write-off that we have. Seniors can work up to a certain number of hours earning minimum wage, and in lieu of a paycheck, we deduct their property taxes as a result. That's the processing cost of those, and then we just take $1,000 off of their property taxes through the city assessor's office once they've completed their maximum number of hours, or if they didn't get to that maximum, whatever amount they earned, again, at the minimum wage rate. Other than that, things are pretty much the same on the human resources side of things. On the employee benefits, a lot of this is done contractually. Through the different contracts that we have for our insurances, for our 111F claims. That's the public safety version of workers' comp. The workers' compensation contract that we have, unemployment insurance, Medicare, life insurance. We do offer a $10,000 life insurance policy to all of our city employees. Health insurance is based off of the work that we do. We are self-funded and self-insured. However, we do contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield through Cook & Company, our insurance brokers, to basically set our rates and manage our account with us, with our city treasurer and our city auditor. And like I said, most of that is set by some type of actuarial study or contract or recommendations by the consultants that we have working with the city.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the counselors about human resources or employee benefits?
I just had a question about the medical exams. Now, the school actually has a school doctor. Do they still have a school doctor that they use for the students?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so they don't use her for any type of employee exams or anything like that? I mean,
Not that I'm aware of, but I'd have to check on that too.
I just wonder if it would be a cost-saving measure just to use her, and pay her a stipend for that.
Yeah.
If, however it would be, just to reduce the cost of
No,
those.
I get that, yeah. Typically with the medical, sorry, Madam President, I'm interrupting. Typically with the medical exams too, they cost a lot more for firefighters and police officers because we have to send them through a full physical aptitude training test on top of where a clerical staff member is not going to go through something that a police officer will have to go through. So those cost more. We are fully staffed over at the police department, at least with this upcoming hire that we'll be making. We're down 2 right now at the fire department. So we know that there'll be some PATs coming up, but we'll monitor that as it goes forward.
Further questions, comments from the council? Thank you, thank you. Okay, next is treasurer, collector, debt service, and insurance. Jennifer Dennis is here. Good morning. Anything you'd like to add or say about your budget?
No, I think it's pretty much level funded. I did have some cuts to the, my request for postage, because postage costs keep going up, and we do handle postage for the entire city for all mailings, and then a cut to the parking meter maintenance, but that was not an issue, because I believe we're looking into getting new meters, so maintenance
That's why
should
that
drop.
cut was made.
My only question was about parking meters, and you explained it in your supplement, so.
Yeah, so other than that, there's, other than say my request for longevity of 680 was obviously a typo.
Yeah.
So, the math doesn't even work to get to that number. But everything else is, based on what estimates were for, like, going into the property insurance, and then for, the debt service, we have the schedules, so we pretty much know what our, budget's going to be from year to year.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the counselors?
No, other than with all the postage, I know that there's, been a lot of inquiries about, doing more online for billing, and I know we've been able to do it for some things. Has the city been looking more so for, for paying for water, sewage, doing more online?
We would like to get the water and sewer bills online, but there's a problem with the way Munis is creating the bills and how Unibank is reading them. So there's an error and they can't compute that way. But I do think that everybody would still need to get a paper copy regardless of, I know a lot of people are going to emails for things, but I'm not sure that that's legal for us to go in that full direction yet.
Correct, yeah, that would be a state law change that has to be made for that.
Thank you.
And postage seems like it's gonna go up soon again, so.
It always does.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to cut down on what we're doing. We're trying to implement EFT payments for accounts payable to cut down on the number of checks that are getting mailed. We've run into a couple of roadblocks, but we're trying regularly to get that done.
Thank you. Further questions, comments from the counselors?
Not this time, no?
Mr. Mayor, anything to add?
The email direct deposit slips are going very well, at least in my opinion, as someone who receives one. But thank you very much for the funding that you did with that, because again, it just cuts down on the costs in some way, shape, or form. It might not be postage, but it's time cost of labor, it's the less printing that needs to be done on it. And even if we save a ream of paper a year, that's still a ream of paper we didn't have to pay for.
And is that across all city employees, including the schools?
Correct. Schools are mandatory direct deposit, email advices and email W-2s. We've had the majority of people sign up for email direct deposit advices, so that cuts back on having to print, we just print the remaining ones on regular paper as opposed to using the forms we were purchasing. So there'll be a cost savings overall for that, and of course envelopes, because they're delivered electronically. We cut down on our usage of envelopes significantly.
And because every week an employee would get an envelope in their slip, so it's just,
Sometimes they get returned, but not
most of the time they
always.
don't.
Yeah, it was a lot of waste.
Yes, yes.
Anything further?
Those are exempt from public record too, because there are deductions and other stuff on there too. So even if an employee uses their city email for those, they're actually exempt if we get a public records request. So just to make that clear for everyone too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the final department is law department. Mr. Mayor, assuming you're taking on.
Yes, I'll be taking that one, Madam President. It's pretty much level funded from last year's request. Aside from the 3% cost of living adjustment, most things are the same, if not some minor reductions that were based off of trends that we had in legal research outside counsel, in arbitration. A lot of those were lower compared to what we did. The increase in the office supplies, as we're finding that a lot of the office supplies that are being used by the law department right now still have Attorney Kolodny and Attorney Priya's name still on them, so we're crossing them out with pens and sending them out. So just to update that with Attorney Pusateri's information if his appointment goes through, or get more up to date with how we're doing things in terms of connecting with the city and the law department.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the council?
I'm back on, I'm gonna go back to office supplies, because, to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of things, especially depending on how long the assistant city solicitor, if it's gonna be a temporary appointment.
Yeah.
You don't need to have printed stationery, there's something they can create.
There's
on
definitely
the
wiggle room in
document.
that line.
There really needs to be there, because, I mean, let's face it, it's a law firm that only does so much work for the city. So how much of their office supplies is really just being used for the city versus for the rest of the law firm? That's a very, I mean, that's a line that's very hard to track.
I agree.
And I think compared to every other department in this building, that's a huge line item for office supplies, where everybody else here is in the hundreds of dollars and they're in the thousands.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that
I think there's plenty of wiggle room. If
Yeah.
there's cuts that need to be made, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be opposed to it.
I think that that's something that definitely needs to be addressed.
Further questions, comments from the council? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move to the remainder of our agenda from the budget hearing. Any further questions or comments from the committee regarding the FY 2025 budget? Anything else before we close it out?
Want to thank the mayor and his office for all the work putting these packets together, as well as all the department heads for the time they took in writing the narratives, which answered a lot of questions that we normally have. So thank you to everyone.
I would certainly echo that. I mean, I found this to be, we've split it up into committees. The mayor's done a little bit different, you know, each year that you've done the process. I always found it to be helpful to get our committees separate. I really found the narratives, as I kind of alluded to earlier, as you said, they just helped so much, having that supplemental information, answered a lot of questions. And I would encourage any members of the public as well to go on and check it out online, because it really does address a lot of it, and you can see that this isn't the way this is done in every city or town. It's the way that we've kind of developed to do it here, and I think that we've learned from year to year. And I think that, you know, when you have something as important as your almost $90 million city budget, you should be as thorough as possible, and I find this to be pretty much close to that. So I certainly appreciated that new format. But I did want to say thank you to the department heads as well as the mayor for being here this morning. Anything further?
No, the amount of work that went into this was very evident. And it did make it a lot user-friendly and easy to go through, so I appreciate that.
I appreciate it. When you get to the bigger budgets, the bigger binders, and I'll talk about those at the full council informal meeting. One of the things that was never included in the budgets before was an explanation of the revenue and where the revenue is coming from and what was actually getting paid for. So I hope that section was also just informative in terms of trying to figure out, yes, we've always talked about where the money's being spent, but not where the money's being coming from, really, except for a page that the auditor would put in that a lot of times the administration would forget was even in the packet. So hopefully all of that was at least painted a more full picture of what our financial standing is as a city.
Thank you. Anything further?
I just want to commend the department heads, because doing something like that, the narrative's the first time, so it's very difficult, but it'll become second nature.
Yeah, no, there were no issues in getting those narratives from the department heads either. Most just understood it and just went with it and knew the reason behind it, and I learned a lot on my side of it from reading those narratives too. So I thank you to all of them for me too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, the FY 2025 budget hearings are now closed, and we will go on to Roman numeral 2, first time on the agenda. Item 11282, a communication from the mayor regarding item number 11232, a resolution relating to the future of Helen May Sauter School, and item number 11279, a resolution relating to the future of Stone Field. We did get a letter from the mayor, but I will let you go ahead.
Thank
with
you,
that
Madam President.
explanation.
Just as a follow-up, because the city council voted to, request that the administration look into these two properties. We did start looking into the process of if we were to sell Helen May Sauter, we'd need to subdivide that land out, because right now it's on a big parcel that connects Elm Street, Helen May, the chair, Stone Field, and the playground. While the surveyor was making that A&R plan, he noticed that there was a restriction in the original handwritten 1895 deed that is included in your packet that states that the property shall forever be used for school purposes under the auspices of the Gardner School Committee. So the law department has requested that the school committee obtain outside counsel to verify his thoughts that that is not something that is able to be removed unless we find every heir of the property. The school committee has entered into an agreement with attorney Christine Tree, who is a land use expert attorney, to see if we can come up with a way to verify that information provided by the city's law department, and also if there is a way around it, what is that way around it, and how can we move forward with that property, because the property is just sitting there and we don't want it to be the next rotting property, the next School Street school, especially on Elm Street. There is a deed for the Lucy Stone house next door to Elm Street School that shows that that was originally part of the property that was deeded by Mr. Derby to the city, and in the 1920s, there was a deed release signed by Mr. Derby's grandson that said that that restriction was no longer required for that portion of the property, and that's how they were able to sell that to build the house that is now the Lucy Stone house. So there are some ways that have been done in the past. We're just still reviewing that, but while there may be more information coming later on, where this just came up, I just wanted to make sure the council was informed of it at this time, so you knew at least what our plan was going forward from here.
Thank you. It's just a comment. It's good to know, Attorney Tree,
I found this on the web.
That would be my question. Sorry about that.
I was like, that doesn't sound like Attorney Tree. Attorney Tree, she's come before the council, the zoning board. I mean, she's very, very experienced in municipal issues, so, I'm confident in that choice. But I do appreciate this update on this, and that it is ongoing with both Stonefield and Helen May, and the research that's going into what we can do with those areas. Any questions, comments from the committee?
None, when I first read all this, that I knew that there would be some lengthy research, because eventually, I mean, there are some legal options, but it's gonna just take some time.
Exactly.
Unless somebody knows any descendant of the Derby family, which you never know.
Yeah.
That might be out there, that all it takes is one heir to be able to give written permission.
Jim, there's a lot to look into here. I'm somewhat concerned with the letter from Solicitor Flick and his comment that the school committee should consult with their own legal counsel. I'm wondering why he feels he's not their legal counsel, but he can address that at some point. Would be great.
Certainly can request that in a memo from him to the council.
Further questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I move to recommend placing the communication on file to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Jonalette, seconded by Councilor Mack to recommend placing the communication on file. Is there a discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11283, a measure authorizing an intermunicipal agreement between the city of Gardner and the town of Princeton and for veteran services FY 2025 to FY 2027. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. The current contract we have with the town of Princeton for regional veteran services expires at the end of this fiscal year. This represents a 2% increase for each fiscal year for the 3 years of the contract.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the committee?
I would just be interested, and I'm sure the Veterans Department and Director would have this. I know we have the intermunicipal agreements with Ashby and Westminster, Ashby and Princeton, the amount of services that they do offer for each of these communities. I think that the Veterans Department is very overwhelmed, and they get a lot of services probably for the amount that they receive. I think we already know for the part of our salary survey that our Veterans Director is extremely underpaid, if not the most underpaid employee in the city. So I think this is something eventually we're gonna have to look at, because I think they're getting a lot of bang for their buck. And if that's one way we're gonna, look at to increase salary. But I am in agreement with this.
Is there a motion?
I didn't know if you had comments.
These agreements seem to be going well. They provide centralized services for all these towns. We do need to, as Councilor Mack said, look into the compensation of the department, though. I would like to make a motion, though, to recommend authorization to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Donald, seconded by Councilor Mack to recommend authorization to full council. I echo the council. Is there discussion on the motion? I echo the the comments of the councilors, and I'm glad that we do these. I think it's a really good model for other communities to be able to be a good neighbor, especially when it comes to veteran services. We are a hub for that in Gardner, quite frankly, in the greater Gardner area, not to mention the North Central Mass region. And I'm glad that we can, have a good model for any other communities or anyone else from Massachusetts who might look to be doing similar things, because not only does it help the town on their services, it also helps the city use the full capacity of their services, which should be compensated appropriately. And I'm glad that we're able to do that, especially for veterans as well.
These agreements actually set the minimum staffing levels by law for that department. The general laws actually have a grid that says, based on full population of community, not veteran population of a community, if you add another town and that increased the full district population to this, then you need this many full-time assistants, this many full-time clerical staff, this many full-time in these different positions, and it's broken out there, and I'm happy to get that to the council too as well, just for supplemental information purposes. But yeah, the Director of Veteran Services is the lowest paid department head we have in the city, in the low to mid 60s. So it is something that we do need to look at in the future, as was evident from the salary survey preliminary information that was released. But it's something that we'll build a plan toward once that survey is completed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11284, a measure authorizing intermunicipal agreement between the City of Gardner and the Town of Ashburnham for animal control services FY 2025 to FY 2027. This is similar to what we do with veteran services, Mr. Mayor.
Same thing, but for animal control services, we do animal control for Hubbardston, Ashburnham, and Westminster. This represents a 2% increase each year for animal control services for the Town of Ashburnham. We already renewed with Hubbardston and Westminster earlier this year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any questions, comments from council? Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we pass this on to the full council for approval.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Mack, seconded by Councilor Donald to recommend authorization to full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11285, an order appropriating $5,000 from free cash to the Council on Aging Repairs and Maintenance expense account. This is for various maintenance and repairs that needs to be done to the Council on Aging building. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is for the McKean building over on Pleasant Street. Back in the early 2000s, there were holes cut into the walls for air conditioning, and the walls were sheetrocked on the inside, but not covered up on the outside for those holes. So there was some sheetrock replacement due to some weathering issues. There were some bird nests that had to be removed as a result as well from certain aspects within the walls. So it's fully covering up those holes rather than putting a piece of plywood and hoping it stayed up, and making the building fully recovered from the new air conditioning system that we have now. We have many split systems in there now, rather than having to have a window air conditioning unit in a hole that was cut in the wall. So it fixed up all of those legacy issues that we've had in that building.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Questions, comments from the council?
And the mayor, you plan to continue usage of the building for some city services?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No other questions.
Thank you.
Make a motion to recommend passage to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Donald, seconded by Councilor Mack to recommend passage of the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 11286, an order appropriating $30,000 from free cash to the mayor's unclassified S. Graves versus City lawsuit expense account. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is for the expenses that have been incurred in the ongoing lawsuit with the Attorney General's office in the city that Attorney Graves has filed against both. This is progressing forward. Yesterday, I did receive a request to get a breakdown and provide the bills, as has been done before with this. I'll be sure to get that to the council before Monday's council meeting, as a breakdown into what the funds are here. It is still in the preliminary trial hearing stages with the judge. Different motions have been filed and things of that. So we aren't at discovery for it yet, but this is where the cost of everything that's been done so far with Attorney Petrini for representing the city on this side of things.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the breakdown that you're going to provide to the council before the meeting, is that going to be for this 30,000 or for all 84,000?
We can do all 84 if that's what the council wishes to.
I would appreciate that full breakdown. Thank you. Further questions, comments from the council?
So this is the preliminary lawsuit going to original trial or going to?
We aren't at the
appeal?
trial stage yet. We aren't even at the appeal stage. You can't get to appeal until you've done the trial. So this is all pre-trial work that's being done with the judge in terms of motions and preliminary hearings and things of that nature. So we haven't even hit discovery for this yet.
And there's no idea of any type of time frame. So the amount that has been allocated thus far could just continue to increase.
It could, yes. And we can certainly ask the law department to provide an update on this in an executive session to the council, as we've done in the past too, whenever the council wishes.
And is there any way we can get this money back if down the road, like, I don't know if you can speak on that, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just gonna comment that if we could try to, this is huge cost, and if there's ever a possibility, depending on how all this goes, might be something to entertain. Further questions, comments from the council?
No, I just appreciate the budget breakdown, and it's a cost that we've incurred that we have to pay. So make a motion, we recommend passage to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Derlot, second by Councillor Mack to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion?
I just can't believe that we continue to spend this much money. As much as I hate to vote for it, it seems that we have no choice. In this city needs funds for so many other things that it just kills me to literally, it's such a waste of city tax dollars that could be used for so many other areas that are desperately needed. But we've been put in a horrible position, but we seem to have no choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 11287, in order to amend the Code of the City of Gardner, Chapter 171 thereof, entitled Personnel, to change the compensation schedule, Exhibit E, non-union personnel. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. This was previously on the council's agenda before the last meeting and then was removed from the agenda because the letter was not supposed to be in the stack of documents that were given to the city clerk's office for the last meeting because the ordinance itself had not been written yet. The ordinance document is now attached. This is associated with the fiscal 25 budget. So all of those numbers are contingent on the FY25 budget being adopted by the city council in terms of at least the salary votes there. But that would be the ordinance change that would have to go into effect to do the 3% cost of living adjustment.
So we'll keep this on our agenda. We'll have more time because we have to wait till the budget is passed before we can act on this.
Right.
If there's no objection, we'll be granted more time on this on our agenda.
That works for me.
Okay.
More time.
Okay. Any questions, comments on the item from the board? No. Okay. Item 11287 will remain on our agenda. 11288, a measure to create a special projects gift account. We did receive an email forwarded to us from the mayor that was from Auditor Richard requesting to rescind the special project gift order from this agenda, as he had determined that this isn't needed for the account to be set up unless we intend to use it in a special circumstance. And he's offered that we can talk about that further if we have questions about that. And there's other options for that as well, but the request was to remove this because it is no longer needed. Is that a fair assessment, Auditor Richard?
I make a motion to remove the item.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Derlot, seconded by Councillor Mack to remove the item from the calendar. And to the clerk, I just have the email, Auditor Richard's email, if we can just include this in the minutes. Please, thank you. Okay. Roman numeral 3, referred to finance. Item 11272, a measure establishing a special purpose schools reserve stabilization fund under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B. I don't know if the auditor wants to come up too, or,
Sure, John, do you want?
I don't know if there's.
Just to, this is really,
Microphones here.
this is something that several school districts and municipalities have been doing across the Commonwealth. Basically, when you set up a special purpose stabilization account, it's meant to put money aside that if you have unanticipated larger increases in certain things, you have a separate, basically, savings account for that purpose. The money that goes, any money being put into this account or being taken out of this account do have to be approved by the city council by a simple majority. Now that the supplemental budget for the Commonwealth was adopted in December, it changed the money to take out of it from an 8 vote to a 6 vote. But when you look at the out-of-district placement costs that the city's incurred recently, those fluctuate tremendously depending on what's happening. You'll see in the supplemental information that I gave you, we had almost a $700,000 increase in out-of-district placements in this year alone due to a special education student who required certain services. We are required to pay for those just like any other school choice out-of-district placement that we have, but we're required to pay that at the rate of the services that student receives. We do try to keep every student that we can in-house, and Dr. Pellegrino will present that at the upcoming school budget presentation. But when it gets to a point that we just simply cannot provide those services, we have to find that student those services that they deserve. Additionally, we know that transportation costs are going to be increasing for the city. The current school busing contract was a 5-year contract that was negotiated in 2019, before the pandemic, before inflation, before anything like that. So we know costs like that will go up. So this is just creating a special purpose stabilization account for us so that we can have something built up where if we have an unanticipated cost, it at least lessens it. It probably won't cover the full amount that's there, but at least makes it so that we can take less of that hit up front and smooth out those costs in some way, shape, or form. The city's financial policies say that we'll put 1% of certified free cash into our special stabilization accounts. Again, those are not binding policies, but they're guiding policies. And that's not that much, but at least it starts us on a path that we can build up something to get to where we need to be and not have everything hit us at once. Because that increase that we had on the school side right now, just in this year alone, in that out-of-district special education transportation hit of $700,000, then we add on the increase that we had in the interest on the new school this year, that went up almost $850,000. That's almost $2 million that could have been used for other city services, but it's almost like we're subsidizing the school department from the city side of things because of these unanticipated expenditures that come up, where we need to start coming up a plan where we can equalize and get everything back to an equilibrious state of finances.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the explanation and, your letter, and also including the information from the Division of Local Services, because I think that's really helpful to just show what principles this is based off of. Any questions or comments from the counselors?
So the city would put in from free cash. So for example, I know the school department requested an additional bus.
Yep,
And there wasn't the money. So this is something that you could have, if they had been money, you could have funded out of here.
yep, we would brought it up in the city council.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, the school department would have to request that of the city council, make their case to the city council, and the
Why
council
they
would have to
needed it
vote.
and why they wanted it from the specific account.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you. Further questions, comments from the counselors?
We created these before for other purposes. I think this makes a lot of sense, put this one and the next one. So I'd like to make a motion to recommend passage to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Donlin, seconded by Counselor Mack to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11273, a measure to establish a special purpose capital projects reserve stabilization account under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section B. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. I talked a little bit about this earlier. This is just, again, building up a savings account. We have a vehicle stabilization account right now. That's one of our other special stabilization accounts that we have that we put money into so that we can purchase vehicles and not have the full cost of the vehicle hit us like we just had with the ladder truck for the fire department. But we haven't done the other non-vehicle capital projects that continue to stay on our capital improvement list that come up that are last-minute repairs that need to be done. So this, again, is just making it so that we can build up and make a plan on we may not be for a couple years before we can afford something just at the rates that we have that we normally put into these, but it sets us on a path that we can at least work towards being able to fund projects out of these so that we're not constantly getting hit by these emergency repairs that cost us an arm and a leg and really hinders what we can do financially as a city, but have a plan to come forward that we, you know, maybe we can use a little bit of this to pay for that and then the rest come from free cash, or we can make it so that we don't have to continue using operating funds to fund capital projects and find ways to even things out a little bit.
So this is the same process where we put funding into it and also funding coming out of it. There needs to be a vote of the council.
Correct.
Same thing.
Yes.
Questions, comments from the councilors?
We'll make a motion to recommend passage to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Denalow, seconded by Councilor Mack to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 1127, thank you. And item 11270, in order transferring $10,000 from City Clerk Department salaries and wages to election registration professional services operating expenditures. This item, well, I'll let you go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is made from the vacancies that we have in the positions right now. We've only had one assistant city clerk currently, where we're funded for 2 in this current fiscal year. So there's excess salaries in that, so it's going to cover the cost of just extra elections that we had this year.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the councilors?
Make a motion to recommend passage to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Denalow, seconded by Councilor Mack to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 11271, an order transferring $16,200 from human resources salaries and wages to operating expenditures. So this is to cover the costs for the part-time on-call consulting services in this department, as we had a vacancy which has now been filled, but to be sure that those services could continue uninterrupted. And so this is requesting for that funding to be transferred so that it can
A small portion of that, the majority is actually going toward our flexible spending account consultants that oversee our flex spending optional insurance that we have. I think of the $16,200, the breakdown that the auditor put forward that's in your packet, I believe is
6,000 for the consulting, and then
Yeah.
the flexible service fees were 10,000.
10,000, thank you. This is something that we've done. The consultant work is something that's been done whenever we transition out of the department head position. Former city treasurer Charlene Daigle had an agreement that came in to get things until the new treasurer was hired and then trained the new department head on certain aspects. That was done with the treasurer, that was done with former auditor, now Councilor Brooks, with Auditor Richard. Clerk's office has had that happen as well. When we haven't played musical chairs with department heads in City Hall, then it's just the other department heads coming to help out and train that way. So it is just a matter of getting us so that things don't fall too far behind while a vacancy exists, and then training the new department head after hours on how the processes work. And so those are all just separate agreements that are entered into with those former department heads to come back on a consulting basis to do that. The flexible spending account, again, that's an optional insurance that we provide to our employees. There are certain fees that are associated with those services. We are probably going to be shopping around for a different consultant next year, just because we're getting to the end of that contract and the fees are a little much and building up. So seeing what we can do on a more longer term plan for the flexible spending as well.
Thank you. Have anything to add?
No, as far as the HR director's position, as you know, it's an essential position, so by not having somebody in that seat, I mean, it's basically the gas pedal to the city for hiring and tons of tasks that need to be done. So that's the only thing I can say, is I'm glad we have a consultant helping us.
Thank you.
The contract rate's $100 an hour.
That was my question.
Yes.
And does that include what already has been done?
I'd have to,
Because we didn't allocate any money prior.
No, there was some in the professional services, basically that line item, there was some funding in there. So the $6,000 would cover but basically most of that, but there is some that was in that line item.
Can I
so.
ask who negotiated the $100 an hour?
That's the rate that we have for consultants right now. I can, you know what, one of the things that might be helpful is providing these contracts to the council when they get negotiated and signed too. So if that's something that the council would be interested in the future, we can.
So you negotiate it with the person?
Yes.
That's an extremely high rate an hour, I have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, even with 4 college degrees, in 32 years in the city, I did not make $100 an hour. So that's an extremely high amount of money.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the work she's doing is off hours, so she's working her 40 hours and
It's still a lot of money. Thank you. I just want to go on record, it's still a lot of money.
Yep.
Thank you, Ken. Any further?
When you, I just want to say, when you look at what we're paying other city employees and everything, and you have DPW workers making $15 an hour, that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but to be fair, consulting fees are not the same rate as employees' fees. They are significantly higher.
Yeah.
So it's a
I,
temporary thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's, now we have a director in place. I had a quick question about those service fees. That's something that's, the salary stuff for the, consulting fees are not permanent. The fees are, is that properly funded in the budget going forward?
That's actually, it's not permanent because we switched companies.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that was not expected.
It was a surprise.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right.
So that's why we're gonna be shopping around.
Perfect. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to recommend passage to the full council.
second.
Motion made by Counselor Gillette, seconded by Counselor Mack to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11277, an order transferring $30,000 from Mayor Department Executive Aid salaries to Mayor Unclassified Department Open Expenditure. I think this had to do with a vacancy in the Executive Aid position. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Colin Smith left my office in early December. Catherine Jablonski starts on June 3rd. So you'll meet her at the council meeting on her first day. But we've had that 6-month period where we didn't have someone in that. So looking at reallocating some of the salary funds to cover some of the expenses that we have coming up with the new phone system, the installation of that project, and then some just putting it away in the capital fund so that it can be encumbered into next year, because you cannot encumber salaries, but you can encumber expenses that aren't utilized from year to year. So that again, build up that fund, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with a way. If we come up with if the special stabilization account is approved, then we don't have to do this process where we have to move money into an account and then hope it gets encumbered at the end of the fiscal year, and then it just moves forward on from there. It's actually, it cleans things up and makes things a lot more transparent, I guess, in terms of the bookkeeping side of things that are there. Does it put enough money remaining in the account to cover Katie's salary for the remainder of the fiscal year, because she starts in June, so we still have to pay her for the month of June. I will say that I'm looking forward to having someone back into that role. Again, I've been undertaking a lot of the roles that, Rachel Roberts in my office and I have been covering a lot of what was done there. But one of the things that I said, and I think I said this when I informed the council that I offered her the job, is that I'd rather have the right person in the job than the quickest person who could take that job. That's what was done for me when I was hired in that position under the previous administration. I was offered in December and took over when I graduated with my master's in May in that position. So it's a little poetic too to have a mirror situation happen on this side of the bench. But that's where this funding is coming from, was from that vacancy that's been there, going towards, again, the capital costs of installing the new phone system that we have, and putting a little seed money into capital projects that we could have happen in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions, comments from councilors?
I make a motion that we recommend this to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Gillette to recommend passage to the full council. Any discussion on the motion? Only thing I was gonna say was, before you had said that, was I'm glad to see that the position is filled.
Yeah.
I know it had significant amount of work onto you and onto Rachel Roberts, and we barely see a hiccup in that from our end, but having done that position just part-time and knowing I could have done it full-time at the time, and then as you've also been in that position, it takes a lot of work, and it certainly is justified being filled, but thank you for that. And I think it's also important to hire the person who can do the job to get in there. So that's just my comment on that. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11281, an order transferring $9,500 from Health Department salaries and wages to Health Department operating expenditures. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is just to close out for the end of the fiscal year. There was a vacancy in the food inspector position for a couple months, so there was excess salary in the food inspector position. So that is just using to cover the overages that have been done for the department.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Any questions, comments?
Make a motion to recommend passage to the full council.
Second?
Motion made by Counselor Jonah, seconded by Counselor Mack to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 11275, an ordinance to amend the code of the City of Gardner, Chapter 560 thereof entitled Solid Waste to change the fee for solid waste collection. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is at the recommendation of the Health Director, the City Auditor, and the Department of Public Works. And the reason why the Department of Public Works is that it's a water, sewer, and trash bill, so we have to find a way to put them all together. This represents a $15 increase per year for the next 3 years. That follows the schedule based off of the solid waste collection contract that the city has entered into with E.L. Harvey, so that we can have enough money coming in to pay that contract. This is something that we've planned for and smoothed it out rather than putting a big increase up front, smoothed it out over the course of the series of the schedule that you have in front of you. And it's also in the ordinance here under a quarterly basis because the math wasn't adding up before. When you had a year-long rate, but the bills are going out quarterly, then where do you round in certain things like that? And it actually made a little bit of a difference in the revenue that we had for the enterprise. So that's what this ordinance here is represented and being put forward for.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Questions, comments from the councilors?
I make a motion that we recommend this to the full council for passage.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Jonah to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion?
I just want to say that I know for our residents, $15 over a year may seem like a lot, but I think that compared to what other local municipalities pay for private traffic, that we still are well underneath what they pay.
Any further questions, comments, and any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11256, a resolution to rename the City Council Chamber the Ronald F. Cormier Council Chamber. Councilor Mack?
President Kazinskas, I think, we received a lot more information from what I provided of things named after fellow councilors and other former mayors and local citizens, as well as information from Councilor Brooks. So I think it's appropriate this time to just ask for more time on this item.
If there is no objection, we will keep it on our agenda and have more time. We will have more time. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.